Today we'll be talking about the cultivation theory of mass communication. The cultivation theory is the idea that television and media in general has the power to influence our views of reality. This theory has gone on to be tested by many empirical studies. The theory was brought about due to the fact that television seems to be responsible for our perceptions and what we think is normal in day-to-day reality. The roles that family, churches, and even schools had in the past have been adapted by television. We are truly living in a world of television nowadays. The scholar that brought forth the idea of the cultivation theory is George Gerbner, who is a Hungarian and American professor, along with his associates from Annenberg School for Communication at the University of Pennsylvania. His associates most directly linked were Gross, Morgan, and Signorelli. Hirsch looked over the studies and found the aspects that were challenging it, while Potter did the overall conclusion on the claims. The first use and reason that I chose to talk about is to figure out the impact of television. The scholars wanted to figure out how much of a direct influence television is having on society today. The next two go hand in hand with understanding how exposure contributes to the world and how society's views can change. Throughout the chapter, they address how television is one of the factors responsible for our perceptions of what is normal on a daily basis and what reality is. Additionally, television has been said to become a cultural transmitter. I decided to talk about the three most common claims that I saw across readings. The first one is dismissing the fact that TV is creating a negative impact on society, but instead a more positive one. But on the flip side, this claim makes the claims seem more realistic that are negative. It was said that television is able to create pictures of situations that are more alive in real life. This is because on television, we could see things like a hospital operating room, a real police station, or even a municipal room, which many people don't see in their lives, but they can if they watch television. Television overall has a persuasive presence due to the aspects making it seem like real life. This is why we have theories like the cultivation theory. One of the biggest issues due to the cultivation effect is the fact that people are not able to separate television from reality. There's a story about a reporter who was driving one night when he was stopped in an intersection when he saw another car that was clearly not going to stop. It was about to make a left-hand turn without slowing down. It resulted in the car hitting a light pole and flipping over. The reporter was sitting there telling himself that what he saw was not real and that he was just watching a movie. Several seconds had passed and he was still sitting there. He was waiting as if he was waiting for the next scene in the movie. Finally, he raced over to the car, but on television, no real man waited to help the scene. Why did this happen? Television is so persuasive that it makes our vision blurry between illusion and reality. The third claim set the tone for the studies that were done on this theory. Gerbner did a lot of research about television programming with the National Commission on the Causes of Prevention of Violence, along with Surgeon General's Scientific Advisory Committee on Television and Social Behavior. Gerbner and his colleagues gathered data on the number of violent acts, programs marked by violence, and the number of characters that are involved in violent acts. They said that children's shows were surprisingly the most violent of them all. To build off the information that was gathered from the previous study, they brought it even further by looking into the number of hours that people were spending watching television daily. They separated this into heavy viewers who were watching for 4 or more hours a day and light viewers who were watching for 2 or less hours a day. The cultivation theory predicted that if this was the case, then the heavy viewers would think that the world is more dangerous due to having more exposure to the violence on television. This is called the mean world syndrome. With watching so much TV, the images of danger can shape your perceptions and create a mean world in your head. In the end, heavy viewers overestimate their chances of being involved in a violent crime. Here's a video showing the third claim in action.
And in other news, another school shooting has taken place this time in Idaho. As these kinds of shootings increase, one thing becomes clear: young children are not safe at school. This was the second time a terrorist threat has been made on a theme park, leaving everyone to realize that children are not safe outside. Children who are taken by strangers. The bottom line: children are not safe in their own homes. Wait. So I don't know him. You relax. What if he wants to kill me? Please, I just need to know if this is South Park. Get away from me. This isn't funny, kid. You have to help me. But it could be a trick. Someone is out to get me. That is the world that the news reports. It is the world that adults preoccupy themselves with, but it is not the world as it is. Even though all the news is about murders and abductions, those kind of people only
Some important terms to understand in order to fully understand this theory are enculturation, mainstreaming, and resonance. I've already talked about enculturation without saying the word directly. Enculturation was used when I was talking about how the function of schools, families, and churches used to communicate what those standard roles and behaviors are. Mainstreaming is referring to how uniform an image can be when created acceptable to viewers. Additionally, resonance talked about how when you see something on television that you've seen in real life, it intensifies your perceptions and how much you believe it. These two terms allow for the reader to believe what is on the screen even more. Although a lot of information has been gathered about the theory up to this point, Hirsch saw that some personality characteristics related to this program were not selected or controlled. He argued that television can cultivate realistic and functional perspectives of the world. He also found out that if other variables were controlled, this would have led to the fact that there is very little cause and effect that can be correlated to television. He found out that people who do not watch television still thought that the world is a violent and dangerous place. In conclusion, Potter of 1986 concluded that this theory is far more complex than we have made it out to be. The interaction of audiences, society, and television are so complex that they can't be considered a cause and effect relationship. There are so many other questions that could lead to the same result of the world being violent. We all know that the media is a controversial place and about how it shapes our behaviors and perceptions. I am positive there will be more research done on this topic in the future because we are constantly theorizing about the effects of mass media. I will leave you with this quote by George Gerbner.